Hi, my name is April, and this is High Fantasy Writing. One of the biggest things in the media industry in general, whether it be for books, music, or film, is reviews. Reviews help people see what they might want to spend their money on, what to expect when they go into reading or watching something, seeing whether or not they think they might enjoy it, because most people don't have unlimited time or money, so they have to weed out the media that they don't think that they're going to enjoy, so that they don't spend their money or time on it that they could have been spending on something that they will enjoy. Now, there is something to be said, of course, for stepping outside of your comfort zone and watching or reading something that you think that isn't really your style, but you just want to give it a try just to see. Of course, that can be a fantastic thing to do, to step outside of your comfort zone, but you don't want to do that all the time. At least most people don't want to do that all the time. They perhaps have a very stressful job or a very stressful situation in their life, and they just want to escape, and they want to watch something or read something that's going to give them, say, warm, fuzzy feelings. And so if that's what you're looking for in the moment, you don't want to pick up something like Game of Thrones or like a horror that's really like dark horror that's not going to give you warm fuzzies. Like, reviews can really help people figure out what they want to spend their money and time on. But with that being said, there are a lot of really bad reviews out there. Like, you read the review and you think to yourself, what is this person going for? Why is this what they're critiquing about the work? Now, of course, reviews like this have been around since reviews began. People like to feel smarter than everybody else, and they like to be pedantic, they like to be nitpicky, and so it's been a part of reviews for media since the beginning. So this isn't a new phenomenon, but I think that one of the big perpetrators of it in today's day and age is things like, I hate to call people out specifically, but things like cinema sins, where people really internalize that sort of critique, and instead of seeing it as satire or just being funny and, being nitpicky in a very self-aware, like, this isn't a real critique of it, this is just like a funny type of critique. People who internalize it and don't view it as just silly and actually start seriously reviewing media in that manner, it's a problem. Something like saying, oh, well, Game of Thrones is bad, George R.R. Martin must not have done any research because they have wine in the Game of Thrones books, but they have strange seasons, and everyone knows that vineyards have to have the very specific type of seasons in order to produce grapes to make wine. So therefore, the story is bad because of this very specific pedantic thing that I'm going to complain about that has absolutely nothing to do with the story whatsoever. Like, that is not a good review. Saying, oh, well, they have a monarchy in this book, but the leader isn't the absolute power. There are other people who have power also. That's terrible writing. That doesn't make any sense, because in my mind, a monarchy is this very specific thing, and these other things wouldn't be happening. Or a historical retelling, and saying, oh, well, this character that they've given a really large part in, he doesn't actually exist much in the literature and the historical documents. So giving him such a large role is stupid and bad and shows that the author doesn't know anything about the history around the story that she's writing. These things are really, really bad reviews, and it's frustrating as somebody who likes to analyze stories to see being taken very seriously by huge groups of people. I think this is very damaging to media in general and what is given money by studios or publishing houses, because there is not just one way to write a story. Stories are written for different audiences, and different audiences are going to want different things from the stories. If your only issue with, say, 50 Shades of Grey is that it's a trashy erotica, you can have that opinion, but if that's the only reason you're rating it low is because it's an erotica, then it's a bad review, because it was meant to be a trashy erotica. That was the purpose of it. Now, you can absolutely critique it on like how toxic it is, how it misrepresents the BDSM community, how it's poorly written grammatically, prose-wise, like the characters are non-characters. You can critique it on those things. But to critique something and say, I give this 0 stars because it was very juvenile, and you're reading Magic School Bus or something, it's like, yeah, it is. It was intending to be for children. So if your critique is, this has a lot of children in it and it's written very simply, yeah, take a look at the audience that it was geared towards, what it was written for. If you're watching, I saw this some with The Green Knight that came out, and people are saying, oh, well, it didn't really have much of a plot, or the characters weren't super likable, but it was really pretty. It's like, yeah, that was kind of the point of it. If that's the point of the story, then it's fine. You don't need to come out and say like, oh, well, I'm an expert on vineyards, so George R.R. Martin's books are terrible because they have wine in locations where there wouldn't really be able to produce the vineyard grapes for the wine. This pedantic view of media can also spread over to just entire fantasy worlds and people being upset that everything isn't written out for them in the first chapter. They have to actually read the story in order for, say, the history of the country to come into clearer focus, or the way that men and women interact. You have to read a little bit further to understand why they interact with each other the way that they do, and they get upset that it's not explained in the first chapter and that they were only given the information that they needed in the first chapter, and so they're like, oh, well, this world is just too confusing. It's like, no, the world isn't too confusing. It's kind of the point of books that you experience the story, you learn more and more and more about the setting or the characters through reading the story. You don't get a PowerPoint presentation in the first chapter about the entire history and how everybody interacts in this world, because that's called info dumping, and people complain about info dumps. And so it's like you can't win. So as authors or creators, it's really important to be able to identify when reviews are just bad, so that you don't internalize that and think, oh my God, this CinemaSins doesn't like it when a book series or a movie series has a consistent theme in their titles. So they find it stupid to have Harry Potter and the as the title of each book. So I can't do that with my book series because this one person said that it was bad and said that they're annoyed by that. And I'm going to internalize that and feel like I have to cater to these people. You do not have to cater to them. Your story, of course, is not going to be for everybody. And that's just something that we have to accept as creators, is that what we create, everybody's not going to like. There are going to be things that people don't enjoy. Like if, it's so sad. Some people will rate a story poorly because there's magic in it. Or if the story has a talking animal in it, somebody is going to rate that story poorly specifically because there's a talking animal. That doesn't mean that you should cater to that one specific person and never have talking animals in your story. It means that that person is just really bad at reviewing things. If something has an aspect of the story that you personally don't like, that's not actually negatively affecting anybody, it's not a structure issue with the story, it's not a themes issue with the story, it's just I don't know, people, they created a couple of new words for their story and somebody doesn't like the fact that the author has created new words for this story, and so they're gonna rate it poorly. That's stupid. It's a stupid, bad review to do that to it. So don't listen to those reviews. You don't have to try to cater to all of these people who just don't know how to review things. Also, look to see if they're making the review to be funny or to be, I don't know, clickbaity. And if they're not actually saying that these things are issues, it's just pet peeves of theirs or things like that. Because if you look at their review and take them as 100% serious in what they're saying, that can be so paralyzing as a creator, because of course you're never going to please everybody. Of course, the fact that maybe your main character has blonde hair, blue eyes, and is a master swordsman from a small town. There are going to be people who complain about that, who complain that that's super tropey, that, oh, well, of course, that's just what all fantasies are like. And if that's who your main character is, then that's who your main character is. It's not going to help you to just really internalize everything, every tiny little nitpick people might have in their reviews. Now, of course, take a look at if somebody really doesn't like X trope. See why they don't like that. If people don't like the blonde-hair, blue-eyed protagonist who is from a small village and like is suddenly thrust into the limelight, take a look at why they don't like it, and then you can analyze whether or not you should take that review to heart. If it's just because there's a lot of them, then it's not that deep. You can go ahead and keep going with your main character. But if they bring up some really good points about systematic oppression and misrepresentation of people and no representation of people, then you can take a look and make sure that you're not accidentally doing those things in your work and you're being respectful of everybody, etc., etc., etc. When you're going into looking at reviews, know that you're not going to be able to please everybody, and know that there are just a lot of really bad reviews out there. And for some people, nothing is going to be enough for them. So take a look at those things when you're looking at reviews, and keep an eye out for kind of telltale markers of just bad reviews, and just let it go. Just say, that's a bad review. That's a bad reviewer. Let's just move on because they don't know what they're talking about. And it's okay for me to ignore them. It's okay for you to ignore advice, like I've talked about in my how to tell if that's good writing advice video. Sometimes it's just bad advice and you can absolutely just ignore it. Say, nope, that's bad. Not gonna pay attention to it. And that's absolutely okay. You're not a bad author. You're not a bad writer if you just ignore the bad reviews. And so as somebody who is reviewing things, like I enjoy reviewing books. I sort of enjoy reviewing books that I did not like. I like to pick apart what I didn't like about a story and, explain why I felt the way I did about a certain book or a certain movie. And that's okay. But when you're looking at things like that, or when you're making reviews yourself, be careful to make sure that you're not giving bad reviews, you're not being nitpicky for the sake of being nitpicky, because, oh my God, Goodreads, I reviewed a book. It was actually years ago that I reviewed the book. And on the whole, I really, really enjoyed it. There were just a couple of representational issues, like most of the main characters were men, and the only two female main characters that we got point of view from, one was, she was pretty vapid. Most of her internal dialogue was about her crushing over this guy, and the other one was a lesbian who, let's be real, she was just a man in a woman's body. Like, she fully accepted all of the misogynistic beliefs. One of us women has to be the man in the relationship, and so I'm going to be the big strong one while my girlfriend is all worried about her nails and stuff. And in the context of the book, that did make sense because she was in a very masculine society. Like, she had all of those social constructs pushed on her already, so it made sense that she would think that way. I just wrote in my review that there was, I had some issues with that, and that was the only representation there was, but I did understand why she as an individual would be like that. And then years later, the author commented on my review. Like, he was very nice, and he just said, thank you so much for the review. I'm glad that you enjoyed my book as a whole. But it was kind of oh my goodness. Some authors really do go through and read the reviews you write about their books. Of course, that's not going to make me no longer be honest about my opinions, especially if they're very strongly negative. But it is a thing to keep in mind, like, the arguments you're making. Are you going to be embarrassed if somebody who actually knows what they're talking about reads them? Are you going to see that somebody has read your review and be like, oh my gosh, I don't want that to be what people think about me and how I analyze things? Because if you write a 3-page paper on how Game of Thrones is bad because of the grape and climate situation, is that really what you want to be known for? Is completely ignoring the rest of the story to be pedantic and nitpicky about why they have wine in this fantasy world where there are ice zombies and dragons and real magic? Is that what you want to be known for? Maybe it is what you want to be known for. But when we're looking at reviews to see whether we will like something or not, or if we're authors seeing how people respond to our work, or if we are looking to review something ourselves, just keep some of those things in mind so that you have a full picture of what reviews are, the mindset people go into reviews with and what reviews are just really bad and you don't need to take seriously. So in the comments, just leave the stupidest review that you have ever seen. Like, what was some nitpicky thing or something that somebody critiqued about a work that you just looked at and you were like, that's such a bad take. That's such an incredibly bad take. Go ahead and leave those in the comments so that we can look at them and maybe learn from them together and see what we should not be doing with our reviews. I do have a TikTok now at High Fantasy Writing. It's just more short-formed versions of some of my videos on here on YouTube and some more day in the life, like this is where I'm at in editing my work, or here's my cute cat, or here's just what I've been up to type of things. If you are interested in checking that out, I will leave the link in the description. Go ahead and hit that like button if you got anything out of this video, if you agreed with any of my points, and if you want to see more from me, go ahead and hit that subscribe and possibly the bell if you want to be updated when I upload again. Thank you so much for writing. My name is April and this is High Fantasy Writing. Happy writing!